Hello, my name is Jamie White, and I am back once again to bring you our weekly Supplier Diversity and Small Business Economic Impact Report. Um, as always, if you enjoy these weekly reports, make sure you like, subscribe, comment on the video, and share to all of your family, friends, or anyone who you think may benefit from this type of information. So let's go ahead and let's get started. To start out, as you can see from the Forbes article, how recent trade policy has affected small business. Now, unlike the previous couple of weeks where we were getting things such as like the jobs report and things like that, there's nothing really huge that's come out this week. However, there's a couple of things that you definitely need to know moving forward, such as like Brexit, which we'll talk about in a second. But as you can see, the big trade policies that are being um, discussed and have been discussed really since Trump got into office is a renegotiations of the NAFTA, um, as well as renegotiations with China. When it comes to those two um, trade policies or trade agreements, there it is, trade agreements. That was really the core reason why President Trump um, input the tariffs, in particular on Canada, Mexico, and China, as he wanted to have a leg up, if you will, in these trade negotiations. Now, um, unfortunately, we haven't, because he hasn't closed any, or because the Trump administration hasn't closed any of these deals just yet. I do know some people are probably saying, well, what about NAFTA? We do have those uh, verbal agreements in place currently. However, that trade agreement still has to go through Congress. It has to be approved through Congress. And when he made those trade deals, that was when the Republicans were in the majority. So once the commitments have further gone through, and then it goes to the Congress, I am 100% positive that that is not going to go through smoothly. So there are definitely going to be changes, and then they're going to have to go back and renegotiate further. But there's some things definitely going on here. China, as probably well aware of. Originally, we were supposed to have this China trade deal done by the end of March. There has since been an extension, and it appears that if everything goes well, they will have a signed agreement at the end of April. That is not looking very positive at the current moment, but things can change. Uh, the one note that I did want to talk about with that piece is, however, it does seem as if negotiations between U.S. and China are going better than normal. So because of that, no new tariffs have been announced from either side. Now, with that being said, how has the recent trade policy, um, how recent trade policy has affected small business, right, over the past couple of years? So I'm just going to go straight down to the chart right here. And here's the piece: how recent changes in trade policy with China, Canada, and Mexico impacted your business. So as you can see, for the most part, most people are saying no impact. However, when you get to the somewhat negative impact and the significant negative impact, that's where we're seeing the huge increases. So over 95%, as you can see, are either no impact or somewhat negative slash significantly negative impact. So this is actually further broken down. We're talking about the different industries. So construction is, as well as transportation are really hit the hardest here. As you can see, they're really big on the significant impacts. Some things that are not hit as much is obviously like a nonprofit. What is fire? Not exactly sure what fire is. Uh, yeah, not exactly sure what fire is. That's actually hit the lowest. But the main core pieces such as like retail, 32%, wholesale, obviously 42%. I'm willing to bet that's from China. Transportation, manufacturing, construction. These are all being hit significantly um, when it comes to that. Well, not let me not say significantly, but the negative is outweighing the positive when it comes to these tariffs, and that makes sense, right? Because it's already been proven over the past decades with an S that when you enact tariffs, it usually, or not usually, it always has a negative impact on your economy. The thought behind this was that couple of thoughts were behind this when President Trump pushed the tariffs. One was this would open trade negotiations, and then the second piece was the tax cuts would help to, you know, balance, if you will, the tariffs and the loss in uh, economic growth, if you will. So we are now in the position where the tax cuts have already gone through, so those benefits are now done or they're slowing, and the tariffs are still in place, and we still haven't gotten to where we want to be when it comes to the trade agreements. So this next year is going to be very interesting, as now there's not going to be really anything kind of holding the economy up. So it's going to be definitely a interesting year moving forward. Now, let's go ahead and let's get to the next piece, which is U.S. manufacturing sector slowing as economy loses steam. Now, this is something that we talked about, especially the end of last year. We were talking about, well, actually, second half of last year, I did a couple of reports about how European manufacturing was slowing down. Don't think I ever really got to China, but Western Europe was definitely slowing down a lot second half of last year, and I said that we may see that coming to, it may also come around and hit the American economy pretty soon. It appears that it is now here. So as you can see here, U.S. manufacturing output fell for a second straight month in February, and factory activity in New York State hit nearly a two-year low. Um, but it's not just New York when we're talking about this piece. I think is this the one with the chart? No, it is not. I think we've got a couple things going on here, and it kind of goes through it about the drop in manufacturing. But I think one of the big things here, obviously, is that whole the government shutdown, which definitely negatively affected this. In particular, if you have a manufacturing project for a government facility or something like that, a 35-day shutdown is not going to help that. As well as if you're a small business and you need a loan to do a manufacturing job, once again, this government shutdown is not going to help that. So it all occurred during February and January, so we can see that drop in all economic output, regardless of industry. So I do think that this is a part of this. So we're going to see in March and April kind of where we are when it comes to manufacturing, and if this is just kind of a blip in the system, or if this is a long-standing issue that we need to be aware of. Next up, China growth mystery scares global economy in weakest shape in years. And as you can see, we're just continuing that trend. So this one, another chart that I think is pretty good. So normally over the past 2 years, especially since the Trump administration has been in office, which took place around here, as you can see, everybody was pretty much, maybe some countries were growing, some countries were not. So for those who can't see, I'm looking at a chart where it says it's a gauge of how kind of the economies have gone up and down when it comes to momentum. So we're looking at the United States, uh, Europe area, United Kingdom, and China. So over the past couple of years, basically maybe one country will go up and then a couple countries will go down. Maybe they'll all go up, et cetera, et cetera. This is the first point since 2015, or excuse me, this is the first point since 2016. So since the Trump administration took office, where all countries are kind of going down. Well, Europe isn't a country, but in terms of its economy, it's being seen as the EU is kind of being seen as a country in this instance. But so because this is the first time that we're seeing all countries kind of decreasing in terms of economic momentum. Uh, this could be the first stage of kind of this new economy that we're looking at moving forward, and how we're going to deal with that matters. So again, I know that I'm kind of putting forth a lot of bad news. Now, well, let me take that back. It's not huge bad news, but it's just things that you need to be aware of, in my opinion, moving forward. A lot of economists have been, talking about the slowdown. It appears that we are now getting the first signs of a slowdown. And again, it may be because of the government shutdown, which kind of shot any type of growth that we had or we're going to have pretty much in the foot or down. So we're going to see March and April are really going to be able to tell us where we realistically are moving forward. Next up, Americans are getting more optimistic about the economy. Now, timing is everything. So this talks about how in the first half of March, Uh, yep. So as you can see, expected in the U.S. in early March. So confidence has increased. Now, I say timing is everything because this is right after 35-day government shutdown, and now everybody's back to work, kind of in that. So the government shutdown ended first half of this year, and then there may have been an additional government shutdown February 15th, but Congress was able to come to an agreement, and basically everybody was able to go back to work full time without the worry of a government shutdown. So because of that, in comparison to the last 3 months, including December, so December, January, February, March, we're looking great. So because of that, I'm no matter pretty much no matter what was going to happen in March, unless something ridiculously bad happened. But for the most part, we knew that the March optimistic rates for everything are going to shoot up. I wouldn't be surprised if small business optimism increases as well, simply because there is no government shutdown. Now, again, similar to manufacturing, where we don't know if manufacturing is really slowing and this is kind of where we are, or if that was just a result of the shutdown. Same with optimism when it comes to consumers. Right now it's up. However, we really don't know if that is a trend or if that is just the result of, hey, as long as there's not a government shutdown, we're all and we're actually being able to go to work. This is much better. So again, March and April will really tell us where we are moving forward. Last up, I know usually I like to end on a interesting note, but this one, I guess it is interesting, but it's not kind of the usual interesting, if you will. But for this one, last, we're going to talk about Brexit politics and where we are here. So if you haven't heard, basically, when it comes to the United Kingdom or Britain, they tried to pass a couple of Brexit legislations recently. I want to say as recently as yesterday, I want to say, or the day before, and it did not go through. It got a better reception than the last couple of ones. But pretty interesting article. They're just kind of talking about what's going to go forward. As of right now, the Brexit deal is supposed to be done by March 29th. So in 2 weeks, I believe. Yep, over the next 2 weeks. It is very likely that it will not get done, which means that Britain will now have to ask for a extension. As of right now, we're looking at the extension is going to be June 20th. However, one of the things that the EU is worried about is that they're going to ask for a second extension. And what they don't want to have happen is continually giving Britain extension after extension, simply because, I mean, that has a lot, to the markets, right? One of the things that hurts the markets very harshly is uncertainty, and this continued uncertainty is just not good for the global economy and the global markets. So having a definitive, either if it's going to be short or if it's going to be long, whatever that is, just having that one deadline to say, okay, this is your new deadline, you got to hit it, and helping Britain to hit it. Now, how they're going to exit is still up in the air. It's anybody's guess. Um, people are talking about maybe they need a new prime minister to get them through this. I mean, that's extremely unlikely simply because nobody else wants this job. Like, do you really want a job where for a country to have to lead a country where everyone's split, um, to exit out of a deal with the European Union and try to undo kind of 40 years of trade policy um, intertwined with all of Europe? Like, do you really want that job when no one agrees to anything and everybody just wants to blame whoever's in charge? So she's probably whether she likes it or not, she's probably pretty secure in her job as of right now until they get through Brexit. But reading this article, I mean, the Brexit piece isn't even the hard piece, right? So once they actually exit the EU, then they have to go back to the EU and form a new trade deal. So there's just a lot of things that's going on here that it's extremely complicated. This is the EU is it's really rough right now, especially when we're dealing with the slowdown on a global scale. It's just things that we kind of have to deal with and we kind of have to look forward to, and that's why I'm very cautiously optimistic with what's going on now and kind of what's going on in 2019. I've talked about this in the past, and I'll say it here again. Sometimes, even with North America, you could be doing very well in your economy, but global issues can seep into your economy simply because we're all doing business with each other now. And when that happens, I mean, and this is why I'm not, I'm not a huge, hey, this one guy, I don't care what country you're from, this one guy is the reason why everything is successful. Like, I really don't believe that can be the case anymore. It's just because there's just way too many moving parts. And you have to be cognizant of each moving part as you're moving forward. So it really takes a team to create and grow this global economy, which is why we probably have to work a little bit better. Not saying we have to, be all buddy buddy, but just work a little bit better with one another with this. And this is the perfect example of that. So with that being said, once again, another week. Appreciate everybody for joining and listening in on the podcast. SoundCloud, it seems as if we're getting a nice little, uh, a solid, what do you call it? A stream of people, consistent stream of people listening to the podcast. So for that, I really appreciate it. We're going to continue doing these as always. Like, comment, subscribe, comment on the video, and share with all your friends. That being said, thank you so much for another week, and have a great day.